We're live.
Hey guys, welcome to my channel where I talk about all things mindset and weightlifting. But today we are going to be covering a different topic. So I'm doing my live again with my husband, James DeLacy, who's the SNC expert. And we are going to be talking about how to gain muscle and strength if you are a hard gainer. Now, before we start quickly, I just want to let you know that basically what made us want to do this topic is because I've been struggling to gain muscle and weight for quite some time. So I'm in that category of being a hard gainer, but I never used to be. But it's basically the last like 3 or 4 years that I've been struggling to gain a lot of muscle and weight. And we are going to be telling you and talking to you about some tips that I've used to gain some muscle, and then also from James's side as the expert on how to gain muscle and strength.
And as a former hard gainer.
And as a former hard gainer, yes. Maybe you want to tell them a bit about how you have gone through your journey to not be a hard gainer.
So I started at 63 kgs, which is like 140 pounds, back in my late teenage years, and essentially very skinny. And it was a lot to try gain weight for me because I was also so active. So I went from about 63, started lifting weights and things. I think I got to about 70 or 74 kilos, kind of sat there for a while, and then obviously did another force feeding event and eventually got myself to 80 kgs, which was like my next kind of set point. And then from there to about 85. And then eventually I got myself above to like 92, 93 kgs, but I've come down since then. So essentially it was a 30 kilo gain. And what's 30 kilos in pounds? That's like
70 pounds?
Yeah, 70.
Between 70 and 80 pounds.
Yeah, in like 10-ish years. So obviously it's a long process, and a lot of that was making mistakes as well, like going on dumb cuts and stuff when you don't need to, and then all sorts of stuff. So we've got plenty of advice we can give on this topic regarding training and nutrition. Do you want me to start with one?
Sure, but I just want to also say, like, another misconception with being a hard gainer. There are so many people out there who think you are lucky to be a hard gainer, and you're lucky to struggle to put on weight, and you're lucky to have such a fast metabolism that you just basically, if you don't train and you don't eat enough, you will basically be skinny. And that is absolutely not the case. I think it's very similar to if you had to be the opposite, where you would just gain weight really quickly and you had a very slow metabolism. It's very difficult to get to that set point, especially if you are a person who is an athlete, you want to gain muscle, you want to eat to perform for your sport. And that's basically with regards to me. Like, I want to gain muscle and be, if, like, for example, I compete in the 64 kilogram category, but if my weight is sitting around 62, 61, I'm losing out on a lot of muscle and a lot of strength that I could have gained if I was a full 64 kilogram class.
For sure. Do you want to jump into tips?
Sure. James said he's gonna start by telling us a nutrition tip.
I'll start with the training side, I think.
Okay, you'll start with the training side.
The first one is for hard gainers is to do less. Obviously, if you're competing, obviously if you're competing,
I'm not endorsing energy drinks, but it is nice to have.
I'll touch on some interesting research on energy drinks maybe in a little bit, but essentially do less. So you're essentially doing the opposite of someone who's trying to lose weight. The general, I guess, what people say is move more, eat less, which is, again, controversial in itself. But the idea is that you're going to do the opposite. You need to move less. Obviously, that's not possible if you're maybe a competitive athlete, like Mono's obviously training a lot. But outside of the sport, you should be doing the least amount possible. Again, if you have a physical labor job, again, that's impossible. But the idea is, if you can sprint, you run. If you can run, you walk. If you can walk, drive, whatever. If you can stand, you sit. If you can sit, you lie down. And you want to essentially expend the least amount of non-exercise energy as possible outside of your training. And that's going to help you be able to eat excess calories because you're not going to have to eat as much to cover that gap. Within the training itself, you'll see a lot of hard gainers just train too much as well. So yeah, while maybe a 6 day a week push-pull legs routine is a good option, as a hard gainer, you might bring that back to 4 days a week, for example, an upper lower split. Again, you're still going to get this probably the same. If you plan it right, you're going to get the same volume, the same intensity. So you're still going to stimulate a similar muscle building or strength response, but you have 2 less days of training, and that's 2 less days of expending energy. So it's going to be easier for you to eat enough food to start gaining weight and to get stronger. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Not really. I would more like to talk about like for my own experience, because obviously with regards to that, if you are an elite level athlete, you cannot move less. So you have to make up by eating more.
Or you move less outside of the training.
Or move less outside of training. But also you don't want to just be sedentary. And I'm that kind of person that if I, outside of training, just sit and do nothing, I feel really stiff. I feel like I can't really move properly when I get into my training sessions. So I do well moving, and I have a lot of excess energy, so I want to move. But
I want to touch on some nutrition things then.
Yes. So basically, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I've learned through James on how to gain weight and gain muscle. And
you've got a like.
Oh, thank you.
If you guys have any questions, just throw them in the chat too.
Yeah, we will gladly answer them. So basically the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years to help, boost my calories up is, first and foremost, I've been trying to drink as much as my calories, because a lot of people, yes, you want to eat as much as you can. You want to eat as much whole foods as you can. You don't want to just rely on supplementation. But over time, if you are in that position where with me, I can sit for like 2 hours and eat a meal because I'm just so full, I actually do better with drinking a lot of my extra calories. So yes, I still make sure I get all of my meals in, but on top of that, to gain the extra calories, I will have something else. So for example, during training, I will have things like maltodextrin, but then also I'll put some sort of flavoring in. I mean, like James will say, maybe there's not a lot of research behind BCAAs for anything muscle building or whatever.
But don't take BCAAs for anything other than flavor.
Yeah, so I use it for flavor. I mix a whole drink. So I also make things like, so here in New Zealand, we've got something called Raro, but you can also use things like Gatorade, and the full sugar Gatorade to basically get as much calories as you can. So that's what I will do during training to help me to just get some extra calories. Then outside of training, I will have things like mass gainers, which again, kind of also just depends on how your body reacts to it. Because I was trying to have as many mass gainers as I can. And we were even trying to basically make our own little mass gainer with things like almond milk. Now, what was it? Almond milk? Coconut milk. Coconut milk or coconut cream. We would put dates in there. We'd put bananas. We'll put yogurt, protein powder, basically. So it was just a huge calorie dense packed smoothie. But I found with that, I would start to feel nauseous afterwards because I would just feel so full. So we had to obviously change things up a bit. So now I'm having basically Greek yogurt with my protein shake, and we'll add things like bananas and dates and berries and all of the things just to kind of pack it up. But then also with regards to the mass gainer, I've had mass gainer smoothies before, which basically you just buy a pack of, mass gainer from any supplement store, and we've used that, and that has helped a bit. But then again, I get very bored with drinking it, and it starts to become difficult for me to drink it. So then again, where I would sit for 2 hours to struggle to eat my food, it would just be so difficult for me then to consume the mass gainer, because I would just feel so full I won't be able to eat my meal afterwards. But we just have a question here quickly. What anabolic or peptides do you recommend? None. Absolutely none. Because first and foremost, I compete in a clean sport where...
Well, you compete in a sport that's not clean, but you're pushing the clean aspect.
Yes. So I'm pushing the clean aspect of the sport, and I'm literally against all anabolic steroids, anything performance enhancement, because at the end of the day, you're not just messing up your body for the future, but if a person puts himself at risk and gets tested positive, like for my instance, like I want to be a role model for females, for kids, and for other athletes out there. And being that role model, female role model, I really want to push for clean sport as much as I can and get that word out there. And it's just something that, I personally believe in, and it's like my morals and my values. So don't take anabolic steroids. Don't take anything that you shouldn't be taking. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it that I'm a role model already for you. Bharat, that means a lot. I try my best to be to live a life where I make sure I make the right choices with regards to sport, and just also being a voice for other athletes, because I know that's one thing that, especially being in a male dominant sport, being in Olympic weightlifting, it is sometimes hard for females to have that person who they can come to for advice. And because I've been in the sport for over 21 years, I try my best to be there for everyone and answer questions. And like I said, just be a good role model. Do you want to add something more about that? Okay, so we can get back to then some of the.
Do you want me to jump in or you want more?
We have another comment there. It isn't easy, but keep it up. Thank you. Yeah. I'm thinking that you are referring to
you being a role model, being clean.
Yeah. Okay. It's true. It's not easy. It's really tough because everything has to be dialed in so much to the T. Like, for example, your recovery, your training, making sure you're healthy, but also just making sure that everything around it. Like, there's so many sacrifices that you have to make.
Is weightlifting going to be removed from the 2028 games?
So you're going to have to wait and see.
You can't spill too many beans yet, right?
Yeah, no, I can't spill too many beans. Obviously, if reform happens and good thing happens in our sport, then possibly yes, we will be in the 2028 Olympics. If not, then unfortunately, it will be removed. It will be really sad if weightlifting does get removed. Firstly, because I have been in the sport for so long, and I want it to be a place where, like I said, first and foremost, we want to push for clean sports. And that is one of the biggest reasons why weightlifting will probably or could be taken out of the Olympics, which we don't want. But we are fighting hard, especially with our Athletes Commission. That's part of the IWF board. We are fighting hard to try and keep weightlifting in the Olympics. Though I will be really saddened if it happens, but my wishes are with every athlete associated with the sport. Thank you. Yeah, it really is something that it is sad if it does get removed, because there's a lot of young athletes that we are fighting for, and a lot of young athletes we want, to be able to get that opportunity to be able to represent their country and, be at the Olympics. So we are hoping and fighting and doing everything we can to, have weightlifting stay in the Olympics.
Is it permanent or temporary removal?
So we are not sure. We'll have to just wait and see. I guess we'll probably hear in the next year what's going to be happening with 2028. So just stay tuned. Don't give up hope. Don't quit your dreams. Continue on training. Like I said, we are fighting hard to keep it in the Olympics. So don't let any of this mess up your dreams or your goals of wanting to compete in the Olympics one day.
That's it. On the comments.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So I answered the last question with if it's permanent or temporary.
That's what
Okay. Right. Now going back to
Back to hard gainers.
Back to the hard gainers talk. But guys, I do appreciate all of the questions. So continue asking them. I'll gladly answer, and James will also gladly answer if there's any that's for him. So with regards to other things that I did to gain weight, I would also add things like fats into my diet. Even though obviously I'm a person that I don't want to consume too many fats, because I feel lethargic for training. So that's one of the main reasons I don't want to have too much fat. And then also I feel way too full, and then I battle to get enough protein in, which is the number one thing I'm always trying to hit with regards to my nutrition. Is during the day, if I didn't 100% hit my carbs and my fats, that will kind of be okay. Obviously I do want to hit it, but my number one thing that I always want to hit daily is my protein goals. And then what we would do with regards to adding fats to my meals would be adding things like olive oil. So if I have, like, say, rice and chicken, I will have
That's right. Okay.
I would have some olive oil in my meal. And then also I would do things like almond butters on toast, or make little snacks with almond butters, or protein pancakes where I'll just put quite a hefty amount of almond butter on. Obviously, I'll weigh everything to make sure that it's within my calorie range. But yeah, those are some of the things that I use. I mean, I've got some other things that I'll talk about now, but I'll let James also add. I have another question. My best wishes with you, Mona. Keep rising and inspiring, from India.
Indian in Dubai.
From an Indian in Dubai. Oh, thank you, Bharat. That really does mean a lot. I mean, it's because of people like you that we keep doing what we are doing, and we want to put as much knowledge out there as we can. And the more people we can help and inspire, it's motivational for us too. And you guys keep us going.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So maybe James can share some of the things that he used to do when he was trying to gain some muscle.
Some good unconventional tips for you all as well. You gonna finish my drink? I'm gonna touch on this too, because there's some good research with energy drinks. But some unconventional tips and mistakes that happen when people try and gain weight. So first one, not getting enough protein. So this one's a common one as well. So if you're tracking your stuff, you're looking at, if you work in pounds, around 0.8 grams per pound to 1 gram per pound of protein per day, which is around, I think it's 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And that's your protein range. Many people don't hit that. When you're gaining weight, you don't have to be on the higher end. So you can be on the lower end at the 0.8 grams per pound, or the 1.6 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight in terms of protein per day, because the excess calories from protein, from carbs and fats, are protein sparing. So you don't need as much to still essentially get that same muscle building response. So that's one mistake that people make, is just not getting enough protein in general. Some unconventional tips to get more calories in, because that's often the problem. So obviously you want to have a high carbohydrate intake anyway, because a high carbohydrate intake is going to fuel your hard sessions. Carbohydrates aren't the devil. They're not going to just make you big and fat and gain weight and whatever else. It comes down to...
I just want to add, I thought that my whole life. So there was even a time where I basically went like all paleo, and you could almost say not keto, but like I was having a really high fat diet.
Don't do it.
And I was feeling bloated all the time, and I had super low energy, and I was just, doesn't matter how much caffeine I consumed during the day, I would just feel so tired. And then I also went through a stage where, like what James was mentioning now, even like fat and carbs were like the devil. I basically had none of it, focused on my protein goals. But again, I was just always either in pain or injured or not recovered, and just not being able to like do my best on the platform.
And then she met me.
And then I met James, and he was like, and just to actually like also put it out there, like he wasn't the first person out there. There was like another person also at the time, nutrition wise, that was also telling me, have more carbs. And then when James was like, okay, have more carbs, I was like, okay, fine. This is now the second person telling me. So I said, okay, help guide me to show me how much carbs I should be eating.
So it wasn't my good looks that convinced you.
Yes, it was. No, so that's why I actually did it, because of your good looks. But any case, so then what ended up happening, I see when we move a lot, the camera goes.
It's all right, it's focusing now.
Okay, James actually got this like really fancy camera, but I don't know how good it is if it can't pick up my fast moving. So I said to James, help guide me into like how much carbs I should be having. And when I saw it at first, I literally got the biggest fright. I was like, I'm going to get so fat. I'm going to gain so much weight. I'm not going to make my weight class. But I also said, fine, I'm going to trust the process. And it was literally after the first week, I already started seeing myself getting leaner, having more energy, feeling like during my training sessions, I would actually like survive my whole weightlifting session, because at that time I was training twice a day. And I could just feel like my recovery was just so much better and so fast from basically adding a whole bunch of extra carbs into my diet.
And as a hard gainer, you're not just going to have carbs. Obviously, you need to bring calories from fats too. Otherwise, you're going to be eating 600 to 1,000 grams of carbs a day. And no one wants to have a bowl of 400 grams of rice when you can only have 100 grams of meat or whatever in there. I don't know, 400 grams of rice.
He literally has a bowl that's like, move your arm. He has a bowl that's like this big.
Yeah, I do have to have big bowls.
Yeah, and he'll sit there and he'll eat his food. So he does eat out of a bowl that big. He'll have cereal, rice and chicken, everything he can out of that massive bowl.
Back to my nutrition tips. Unconventional. These ones I've done and they work and they're epic. And some of them you'll feel so full you feel sick, but you have to do it, especially if you're a hard gainer and can't gain weight. First one, olive oil is your best friend. Lunch, dinner, maybe a snack, you're going to add a tablespoon of olive oil to your lunch and dinner at least. That's already an extra few hundred calories right there. Just from that, you don't have to eat any more food. Tastes all right. It's not going to change whatever's on your plate. So that's a really easy win. Just make sure you're having things like rice, chicken, pasta, whatever it is, because then it goes. If you're having something like, I don't know what's something that an olive oil wouldn't go with. I don't know, if you're having something sweet, I wouldn't go with it.
Well, I would have put it on toast. Actually, some people do actually have it with bread.
There you go. So it works. Yeah. Italians.
Yeah. So, and I actually do like that.
So, olive oil. Do that. That's easy. Another one, as Mona mentioned, drinking calories is a lot easier, especially when you get sick of eating or you're just so full you can't eat anymore. Have a glass of full-fat milk after breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I was actually going to add that one because I recently read about having a glass of milk after each meal.
Oh.
That will already add. So that's what I will be doing from now on.
I have to get you some full-fat milk.
Yeah, because I love milk. Milk is like one of my favorite things, and especially before bed, I will have a cup of milk and just warm it up a little bit, and it just helps me relax a bit and then fall asleep a bit easier. But the other thing is also like I am lactose intolerant, so I do battle with having too much milk. Then my allergies start to kick in, and like for me, it doesn't really affect my stomach, but it's more just my allergies. So I do have a substitute of having a lactose-free milk. Yeah. So there is options out there. We've actually seen that, things like almond milks and stuff like that, they don't have as much calories.
Because they're water-based.
They're water-based.
And all those almond milks or whatever it is, just water. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm on the dollar menu diet. Yep. The dollar menu diet. That's another one. Another option, something.
Right. Maybe you can talk a bit more about the dollar menu.
I'm assuming it's like McDonald's dollar menu.
Okay. Brandon, are you talking about the McDonald's diet?
Another one that I did that I really enjoy doing, making burgers, but instead of having a bun, your bun is a toasted cheese sandwich. So you have one toasted cheese sandwich as the bottom, one toasted cheese sandwich as the top, and then all your fillings in between. And obviously that's a huge calorie meal because you've got 4 slices of bread plus cheese in the middle plus your actual burger. So you can make modifications like that and essentially just up the calorie count crazy. Same thing if you're eating this is what I used to do when we used to get pizza. I would literally put olive oil on my pizza. Pizza's already what, depending where you get it from, up to like 2,000 calories. You add olive oil on top of that, you know, you're absolutely smashing it. So if you're a hard gainer, these are some of the things you have to do, but you also have to deal with being uncomfortable. Like I would sit at the dinner table and eat until I was so full that I would feel almost sick. And that's just what you have to do to start gaining weight if you're struggling to gain weight, because if you don't, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. And you need to find ways to do that throughout the day. You need to find easier ways to get the food in and the calories in. Another good tip, which Mona's doing as well, is drinking carbohydrates during your training. Obviously, because if you're training for 1 to 2 hours, that's 1 to 2 hours where you're not getting any food in. So if you're drinking a carbohydrate drink, whatever, even if it's only 100, 200 calories, that's still 100, 200 calories you're getting during that time before you have your post-workout stuff. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I do actually. So it says some people out there that, okay, first and foremost, like James said, like you have to be okay with.
It's that one if you want.
Okay, we'll talk about creatine now. If you're that person who, you know, you want to gain muscle, and like you said, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. I actually had a similar conversation the other day in one of my lives where I talked about basically with weightlifting training, like you have to be okay with boredom. And it's very similar with food. You will have to be okay with force feeding yourself, even though it's uncomfortable. It's not, I don't really recommend it to everyone unless you have a really big goal you want to hit, because it's not nice to feel uncomfortable all of the time. And I'm not quite sure yet how healthy it is to force feed yourself to this point. But if you are doing it for performance reasons, like I was trying to be in the 64.
Or you just want to get massive.
Or you want to get massive to do it, to be a full 64 kilogram weightlifter. And I'll give you an example. I've basically just kind of eaten what I want over the last how many months, and my weight dropped to the 59 kilograms class. So I'm now a 59 kilogram athlete. But for me to compete again fully in the 64, I would like to get my weight up to at least 65 kilograms to have the most amount of muscle gain and weight to help me to build strength and to also help me get through my training sessions. There was something I wanted to add. Oh, yes. I wanted to say, if you're also that person who, like me, if I eat things like pizza and burgers and things every single day, I do feel yuck. I do feel like I need to change it up to be healthy. And I'm not talking about salads, because I'm not really a salad person. But yeah, it does make it obviously a lot more difficult. So you must be okay with not having to eat clean all the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you can't just live off chicken, rice, and broccoli as a hard gainer.
Yes.
You need to
eat
high fat foods. You eat more often, bigger meals. Yeah.
Exactly. And also, like, what you can do is you can say to yourself, okay, for a minimum out of my 1,000 calories a day or 1,500 or whatever it might be, I'm going to eat as clean as possible. And then to make up the rest of my other calories that I need to gain, I might have to have things like my milks or my mass gainers or extra olive oil or burgers or pizza or whatever it might be.
And you can make that stuff. If you make it at home, you're fine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some people like convenience, so they'll go to a place where they do takeaways and get McDonald's burgers and McDonald's chips and a McDonald's milkshake. I saw the other day a McDonald's milkshake had like almost 1,000 calories. So
your favorite?
Yeah, it's my favorite. So that was actually one of my go-tos when we were living in Romania to help keep my weight up, is to have the McDonald's shakes. I don't even know if you call them milkshakes. But quickly to answer.
Should I touch on creatine?
Yeah, I want James to talk a bit about creatine. He knows a lot about it. He's written articles about it. So he is the best person to ask.
If you're not taking creatine, take creatine now. Every day, 5 grams every day. There's no excuses not to take it. It's probably one of the cheapest supplements. The most, the most well-researched supplement.
This thing is almost finished.
We'll talk about that after creatine. Most well-researched supplement. In terms of what I'll run through a brief science lesson and make it easy. So obviously you have all these myths around creatine. Is it a steroid, hair loss, blah blah? It's all bullshit. Let's put it this way. Creatine is something you get from eating things like red meat. It's present within the body already. you need to take extra creatine to get the benefits of, I guess you could say, improving strength power, improving anaerobic power, so short burst power, and capacity to an extent. So how it works is you have creatine. They say you take creatine to saturate the muscle. So what creatine does is it binds to what is known as a phosphate molecule. So it turns into, instead of just being creatine or just phosphate, they come together and now they're called phosphocreatine. So it's PCR. That's why it's also called the ATP PCR energy system, which is that fast alactic energy system that, for example, a 100-meter sprinter takes advantage of, as a very crude example. So you have these PCRs within saturating the muscle. Your muscle uses what is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, as energy. So if you've done, I don't know, any basic biology or whatever, you've probably heard of ATP. So what happens is when the muscles use ATP as energy to contract, ATP loses one of the phosphates and becomes ADP, as in diphosphate. So it started with 3 phosphates, and now it's ADP. Now it's only got 2 phosphates. To replenish back to ATP, it needs another phosphate. So the fact that creatine is bound with phosphate, it now takes that phosphate and turns back into ATP, giving you more immediate energy, essentially energy you can use straight away. The more creatine you have, obviously, the more phosphates you have. So the more phosphates you have, the more energy that can be replenished quickly. So if you don't have creatine in your system, you have less phosphates, and then that energy system essentially has a smaller ceiling. By taking creatine, you increase the ceiling. Now, if you look at some of the research on it, some of the meta-analysis that basically combine all the research that's relevant in that area, you see things like 8% improvements in strength and power, 14% improvements in the number of reps you can do with a given load. So essentially you can rep out. So you can do 8 reps with 100 kilos on the bench press. Now you can do 9 reps, and that extra rep is more volume in your training, and that more volume is going to be more muscle growth. You're looking at improvements in anaerobic power. So for example, 30 seconds all-out activity. And that's not just because of this increased energy supply for that energy system. It's also because phosphocreatine seems to have this buffering capacity where it removes these byproducts. Essentially, fatigue, one marker of fatigue is the buildup of what is known as hydrogen ions. So everyone says, oh, lactic acid. That burning feeling you feel when you're getting the last reps of your set, and your muscles start to burn, and everyone's chasing that pump, right? So that burn, people are like, oh, it's the lactic acid. Well, it's not actually lactic acid. It's a buildup of lactate, but lactate isn't the reason. It's the fact that lactate rises, but with lactate comes these byproducts, and these byproducts are hydrogen ions. And what they do is they acidify that muscle, and the acidity actually negatively affects the contractile properties of that muscle. So as it gets more acidic, because you can't clear those hydrogen ions and lactate anymore, then you can't produce as much force, and then you fatigue. PCR actually helps remove some of those hydrogen ions so you can produce more power for longer. That's why one of the reasons why you can go all out 30 seconds hard. So creatine is a must in that regard. When you take it, doesn't matter. There's some research showing that potentially there might be the very small benefit taking it after training for muscle growth, maybe, but it's negligible basically. So just take it anytime. Other than that, there's some dodgy-ish research regarding cognitive function and things like that, but there's a lot of conflicts of interest on that paper. So take it for what you will. But yeah, as a performance supplement, yeah, you need to take it, and you should be taking it every day, regardless. I mean, it's so cheap. It's like $20 for like 500 grams of it. And yeah, it lasts you forever. Take it every day. I don't know if there's anything else you want to know about it. Just shoot it in the questions.
I have actually something I want to ask you.
Oh, you finished it.
So, yeah, I had to finish James's energy drink.
Oh, do you want me to touch on that too?
No. Firstly, I want to ask, there's 2 things I want to ask, because there's 2 very big misconceptions. And the first one is, because obviously people promote more expensive creatines and cheaper creatines. And the thing is, they talk a lot about, obviously they have the creatine monohydrate, and then they've got the creatine, I think it's HCl that it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And would you recommend people going for the more expensive creatine HCl? And why not?
There's multiple creatines. You just need creatine monohydrate. It's the most well studied. all other creatines have shown to be as effective or less effective than monohydrate. So monohydrate is the cheapest, most effective. Get that one. Again, people say you have things like creatine causes cramp. It's just, yeah, it's all a crock of shit. Just dumbasses saying shit.
Yeah.
Basically.
So I have another question. So, okay, first and foremost, like I want to say I take creatine every single day, and yet I am still a hard gainer. Okay. But now there's a lot of females out there, and even though I say no, creatine won't make you gain water weight or make you feel, or make you look like a balloon or get fat or whatever. There's so many things about creatine where people just have this crazy misconception. But tell me about, what is there research out there stating that creatine doesn't make you hold water?
So creatine can have you, I guess, add some water weight, but it depends. There's creatine responders and creatine non-responders. So if you're a non-responder to creatine, you're not going to get that weight gain. Like for myself, I don't get any changes in weight when I take creatine.
Same.
I think same with Mona.
Yeah. I've actually, when I've cut weight, I've lost. When I've cut weight, I continue taking creatine and I would still continue to lose weight. It wouldn't do anything to my weight.
Yeah. So it also depends on how you take it. If you're loading it, then you might as well, but you don't need to load creatine. That's, people think you need to cycle, load, whatever. Just fuck that shit off and just take 5 grams every day, unless you're on a time constraint. For example, you haven't been taking creatine, you hear this video and you go, shit, I have an event coming up in 1 month and I need to be peaked for it. Then yes, you might start to load, but you're not going to take 20 grams in one dose. You're going to split that 20 gram dose over maybe 4 doses throughout the day. So if you're going to load, you can do that, but you don't need to load. Also, if you are cutting weight and you do hold water with creatine, and that stopping creatine is an easy way, you can do that. It seems that creatine, when you take it, the performance enhancing benefits last for around 4 weeks anyway when you stop taking it. So if you've been taking it for a long time, you could literally, when you get close to your weight cut, you could just stop taking creatine for maybe like the last 2 weeks. You're still going to keep those performance benefits coming through to whatever it is you're doing. So that's also an option. But for example, for Mona and I, we've both cut weight for certain things, and we both just take creatine through the weight cut as well. And it doesn't, for us, it doesn't matter because we don't respond to creatine that way. Yeah. But obviously for you, you will have to play around with how your body weight changes with creatine.
Yeah. Bharat made a very good comment there. He said creatine monohydrate is the best form of creatine, which we agree, and is one of the best supplements ever made by mankind. Its benefits are mind-blowing. We definitely do agree with it. That's why we are stating, like people are trying to market it and be like, okay, I can make money out of selling creatine HCl or creatine this. That's
why you should buy our brand of creatine, which is not on the market.
Which will it will be on the market. We've actually been talking about having a niche little supplement range, or like 1 or 2 products that we really do believe in. But we want to also make sure we put a lot of time and effort into the research and making sure we give the best product possible to you guys.
We actually have to do a live stream on supplements at some point.
Yes.
I've got heaps of stuff.
But I do also want to add that if there's any stuff that you want to read information-wise, we have a ton of information on our website, liftbigeatbig.com. You will actually see in the description below. I might have added it there already. Yeah. I hope it's showing. But yeah, we literally have so many pieces of information, valuable pieces of information that's got research behind it. It's not just things that we just like guess. I want to say like pull out of our butt, but yeah.
I've got a couple more things regarding hard gainers, or one more thing regarding hard gainers, one more supplement.
Okay. Why is this camera doing this?
Okay. One more supplement thing. So energy drinks. People hate them because of whatever they want to say, but there's people will take pre-workouts, right?
Firstly, we are not sponsored by V, but
they can sponsor us.
But if V does want to sponsor us after this video.
So pre-workouts and energy drinks. I don't know why pre-workouts don't add this ingredient, because they should. So obviously the main performance enhancing ingredient in either is caffeine. So we know caffeine is important for enhances cognitive function, alertness, focus, blah, 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 but also improves strength, power, even endurance to some extent. But what's interesting is that when you pair caffeine with taurine, they have this effect where the more taurine you have within, for example, an energy drink, the less caffeine you need to get the same benefit. So it's almost like a trade-off where, for example, I think this has 1,000 milligrams of taurine. I don't even know. It doesn't even say on here anymore. There it is. Yeah, 500 milligrams of taurine and 80 milligrams of caffeine. So essentially, you can get similar benefits from 100 milligrams of caffeine if you have a higher taurine content. So I don't know, maybe it's a formulation thing with some pre-workouts where they can't add taurine or something. But that's something to be aware of, where you can get pretty good, especially if you're maybe caffeine sensitive. So for me, I'm very caffeine sensitive, and I'll always pair caffeine with L-theanine. That's like a well-known nootropic or brain drug stack. There you go, coffee as well.
I like coffee too, Brandon.
I hate coffee. It tastes like dirt.
Yeah, he doesn't drink coffee at all. He hates the smell. He hates the taste. I've told so many people, and they're like,
I'd rather not drink burnt dirt, but you can. And if you pair that with L-theanine, if you get an L-theanine supplement, that's like the most well-known, pretty well-researched brain enhancer. So before you're doing anything you need to focus on, training, whatever, pair those two together, and it's epic. It's really good. So I mean, I've had L-theanine and that caffeine now, and that's something you can do that's really simple. And yeah, if you get the chance, caffeine with taurine is a really good combo as well. Can you spell it? L-theanine? Oh, let's put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat.
But you can spell it too for them.
Well, it's easier in the chat like that. There you go. L-theanine. The general dose you want to take is 2-to-1 L-theanine to caffeine. So if you're having 100 milligrams of caffeine, you get 200 milligrams of L-theanine. But as supplement companies do, once things become popular, they just dose the shit out of their products. So now sometimes you can only find like a minimum of 400 milligrams. I've been trying it. It's been fine. So I've been having 400 milligrams of L-theanine with this 80 milligrams of caffeine or whatever, and that's still been good.
And I just want to add something. So I have found every now and again, if I have too much caffeine, I start to feel a little bit almost like anxiety, like, jittery and everything. And I find then when I take the L-theanine with my caffeine, I just get that focused effect.
So that's the nootropic effect. The synergistic effect between the two is it takes away that jittery, that edge off the caffeine. So if you're sensitive, that's the perfect thing to do. Just be aware as well, there are certain genetic predispositions to caffeine. So some people with certain genes will drink caffeine and then feel more tired. They just won't metabolize it the same way as someone with different genes that will have caffeine and benefit from it. So just
maybe in our next video we can actually talk more about.
We'll talk more about supplements.
Maybe supplementing the genes and things like that.
Back to hard gainers. I have another training thing that you see a lot of hard gainers do. They struggle to build muscle in the gym, but they come to the gym and they do a bodybuilding routine from a magazine where it's like shoulder day and it's just front raises, some lateral raises, and whatever else. Sure, you can do some of those isolation exercises, but if you're a skinny hard gainer near the beginning of your lifting, or maybe you're an intermediate, at that point, you still need to get those compound lifts in, and you need to be able to get stronger. Now, obviously, strength doesn't have much to do. Well, let's put it this way. You don't have to be massive to be strong, but to be massive, you need to be somewhat strong. So yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's just very general. Because if you come in and you have person A, they can bench press 225 pounds for 8 reps, and then you've got person B who can only do 135 pounds for 8 reps. You've got person A essentially lifting more total volume. And we know that lifting for building muscle, it comes down to effective volume at high effort. So volume is dictated by number of sets, but it's also dictated by a number of sets and reps, and it's also dictated by number of sets and reps at a given load. So obviously you're going to lift more total load if you're doing 225 pounds for 8 versus 135 pounds for 8, and that's a bigger stimulus. You also got the idea that the mechanisms of building muscle comes down to the tension within the muscle, and also there's a metabolic stress component. We'll ignore the metabolic stress component at the moment, but the mechanical tension idea is you need to create high tension within the muscle through a full range of motion, right? And tension is dictated by load, but also how close you get to failure. So Obviously, you can lift lighter weights to failure or close to failure to maximize tension, or you can lift heavier loads and be a little further away from failure and maximize tension. So if you look at some of the research on those big compound lifts like squats, benches, etc., you can stay. There's no further benefit going to failure on these big lifts than staying 2-3 away from failure. But then when you get to the small exercises, maybe your bicep curls, triceps, etc., you want to take these closer to failure. And that's where you get the benefits from these lighter loads because you're exerting more effort in that range. So if you're stronger, you can use heavier loads within your sets, develop more tension, lift more total tonnage, and then in the end, have a greater muscle building response. So for skinny hard gainers that are looking, instead of doing front raises or 2 kilo dumbbells, you want to be able to do these exercises with more weight. And that comes down to getting stronger. You need to be able to press more overhead, bench press more, etc., etc., etc. Anything else to add?
No, I think you can see obviously this topic really excites James. And that's why I'm so grateful to have him like in my corner with regards to gaining weight, or when I have to like lose weight. He has a lot of valuable information to give. So I'm really excited to do these lives with him once a week. We will probably try and do more than once a week in the future. It just kind of depends on like time and schedule and our stuff aligning. But I do want to say thank you all for listening. And if there's any questions you have for myself or James, or there's anything out of today that you took out that was really valuable, please comment below. We would love to hear. Is there
any plans on writing more judo? I'd like to throw it
again.
More judo articles? I mean, I've covered strength training and conditioning for judo. Maybe I'll have a look and see what else there is to write on that topic.
If you have ideas also on articles, like, that's one thing James can probably...
Yeah, just shoot me if there's anything...
You can comment, comment below, and I will also share it with him.
I've covered a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff recently on my Sweet Science of Fighting, but I'll have a look through judo as well. I plan to get some more content out on the different arts soon. But if you haven't already, I've also got my podcast, Sweet Science of Fighting podcast. It's on my YouTube channel, and there's a whole bunch of different guests I've got. I've had Steve Pipe, who works with a lot of the guys from City Kickboxing, so essentially in professional MMA. Graham Morris, who works with a lot of world champ Muay Thai athletes. Then I had Gary Turner, who's doing his PhD within the concussion traumatic brain injury realm, which was very interesting. I had Mona on, just published two days ago on mental skills. Next week, I've got the strength conditioning coach of Australia Cricket on to talk about rotational power. That might be some stuff for you, Brandon, there regarding throws and essentially programming for rotational power there. And then I've got more to come.
I think I also just want to add, so like obviously we've got our site, liftbigeatbig.com, that's got a lot of information. But also if you are a combat sports athlete, James has a really awesome site called sweetscienceoffighting.com, which he's putting now in the chat. And then if you are more on the mental side of things, you can go and visit my other website called helpingpsychology.com. I think you can put that into the chat too, please. My assistant.
I see.
Yeah. So those are the two sites that you can visit. But like we said, we are really good with like replying to the comments that you guys make in the comment section. So if there's anything that you have, or the next time we jump on a live, like we would gladly answer everything. And like I said, James has got a ton of information on his in this brain of his, very knowledgeable. So you can always ask him a lot of things, like I said, and if we don't have the answer, we'll try and find out for you guys. But yes, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends also, put the information out there. We love making content, and we appreciate all of the support. So for the next time we have a video like this, ring the notification bell and subscribe to my channel so that you know the next time I post a video, and especially when I do a live with James. Is there anything you would like to add?
Nope. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Oh, am I ending the stream?
Yeah.